Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I'm the Director of Programming here at Wicked Queer, and we are really excited to have two of the filmmakers from our GTF program here. I had the pleasure of seeing and meeting them in person last weekend and seeing the program in the theater. And so we're here just to ask them some more questions and also like to introduce Giuseppe and Sheen, who are on our programming team, who are also here to ask you all some questions. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
We
me.
just can't get enough of you guys. So we're just,
It's so much fun. It's been fun to be part of the program.
So for you, maybe who are just watching this program for the first time, this is kind of a program we put together with films that we really want to program, but we're unclear, or maybe they don't fit into some of our other programs. So we, for the last few years, have made this program to screen films to give the filmmakers an experience, and also being able to have their films programmed at a film festival. And I think it really makes for an eclectic bunch of films together. And it's something that I think we as programmers all love, because we usually get to pick one and we each put one into the program. So I think it's a very unique program, and we're excited that the both of you were able to come in attendance and see the program. So I'd love to just start first with Lucky, if you just want to talk about the concept and the overall production. And you had said when we had talked prior, from your initial idea to production, now to post, and now it's in in theaters, it definitely has evolved in its meaning. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. And the festival is a really good time. Yeah, so I mean, this is my senior thesis film here in Philadelphia, the University of the Arts. And I feel like the first kind of like inception of the concept was so it was my first, we kind of had the pandemic school year, so it was just kind of online for my whole junior year. And kind of coming back in person, there was kind of that shift. And I think the initial idea I had was wanting to kind of capture this idea of the uncertainty of kind of trying to go out and live your life, and I don't know, just be a person, and kind of but at the same time being I think really desensitized in a way, and trying to avoid becoming further desensitized, and just kind of my general discomfort with going out to clubs and going out to things like that. It kind of started from there, and I started writing it. And yeah, I mean, things kind of change as you write them and then edit and then shoot them and then edit them. And it's a really, really wild process. One that I'm still having a lot of fun learning how to do. And that's definitely was my biggest learning experience to date, was making this film. I'd say after having made it, my current take on what it is I've definitely focused a lot and take note of advertising and my addiction to my phone, which I think is something we all kind of I would assume have. If you don't, God bless you, you're stronger than I am, and then most people I know. And just kind of I mean, at the time that I was making it, I was in a long distance relationship, and I started to find that there were two versions of this person that I loved, and that was the person I remembered in my head that I spent all of this time with. And then there's a version of a person that's just kind of on screen, and I kind of think that is what's there in this climax in this song, where there's two versions of this person. There's this person that you're remember and that you're comfortable with, and then there's this person that you're projecting all of your insecurities and fears onto, and that version of them is just an image of them. It's not really them in the full, in the real, in the flesh. And there's kind of this weird, kind of confusing overload of information that also happens on these screens, where I can be scrolling and be looking at all in sequence, this person I'm in love with, you know, love is what makes Subaru a Subaru, and like Nazis like training in a field somewhere in like Pennsylvania. So like it's just kind of this confusing like overload of like conflicting information. And I kind of feel like I made a film that's attempting to grapple with all of that. And I'm still looking for, as I'm sure we all are, a solution, or just like a way to feel better or make things better. Yeah.
I love that. I love the you talking about the two sides of the person you're dating, one, you know, on the screen and one that you remember. That's really something to reflect on for sure. Tristan, do you want to talk about the concept of yours? And you had mentioned you had worked with the lead prior, and I had said how much I loved their acting in the film. And I thought, you know, they really just, you were drawn to them from the first time you saw them on the screen, but maybe just talk about your overall concept and the production of the film.
Totally. So I had met Libby, who stars in the movie, in college years ago. And since then, they'd become just this very close friend of mine. Like we moved to the city like maybe a year apart, and they lived literally next door to me in the same building just by happenstance. So there's always been this proximity of just like we've always been drawn to each other. And I made this film. It's a full-length movie. I went through the entire casting process, and Libby was my last person to audition, and just totally blew me away. And since then, we've had a really, like, I don't know, flexible and constantly flowing work relationship. I love watching them on screen. I think that they're an absolute star in every sense of the word. I knew from the beginning of writing this movie that they were going to be the lead in it. I knew that I wanted to take somebody who is non-binary, who is actively exploring how they want to present themselves. And I wanted to, I'm not an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director, and I'm a non-binary director going through things. And I wanted to work with somebody who could present themselves on screen the way that I kind of wanted to go through those evolutions. And so from the beginning, I was like, genre, Libby, and I'm going to make them go through an insurmountable amount of wardrobe changes, from, you know, being a total bad boy to being in drag to then like being in this like mix mat. I don't know, just totally a mix of both of those in the end. It was it was this manic state I was in when I was writing it, and dealing with loss, that it found its way into the movie. That kind of energy is something that from the beginning was always going to be there, because I just had to say something and I had to get out whatever it was that I had to get out. And we shot the thing very quickly too, in that same, you know, quick energy. I think it was like 3 days. And then I just spent the next few months in post and working it through. And I don't know, I wanted to keep it to a few locations. I wanted to make sure it was a singular point of view that's just kind of bouncing from one location to the next and then back around, because I like the twist and to like loop back around, like I don't know, to come back to where you came from with new experience and new energy and turn it into something that it wasn't when you first came. That was kind of always the intention. That was always my act 3, was to go back to act 1 and present, you know, another option or another way out. Yeah, so that was why I made the movie, I guess. That's how we did it.
And for the both of you, this was a question that I think I'd asked, but both your filming styles and the use of the sound design, I absolutely loved. Can you maybe talk about, you know, your DP and maybe your choice of sound design?
I will chime in. Yeah. So I'll start with my DP. We worked together for, I don't know, maybe about a year up until this project, on a couple of different shorts and commercials and, you know, the like. But then it was sort of like a challenge we worked on a movie that was very much a practice in composition and in preparation and making sure everything is reflective of either art or another piece of media. And then this was kind of like, let's strip all of that away and let's just go and shoot 2 cameras because we're shooting this movie in 3 days. And let's just pick up shots. Let's shoot the scene like 3 times each and just pick up shots and make it feel like this documentary, kind of just always react and be kinetic with the action. And so it was a challenge, it was a struggle, but it was really cool. Like we lit the space so that way the actors could just kind of bounce around. We made sure that we had like a dark set. We really wanted just to have as much contrast as possible. So we created these pools of light from the ceilings where the actors could kind of like weave in and out of, or, die in, something like that. And then the entire backdrop is just black. It's dark, like you don't see anything. Maybe the reflection on somebody's glasses is the thing you notice. And it was cool. Like we created those, but then we also found them again. And to have the actors find them without us totally like blocking them to the spot felt magical. And we just kind of chased that energy the whole time. And when I was doing the music and then the sound, it was all, I did all my mixing, all that stuff. It was just about creating this like under layer of like toxic tar and like ick and just the drones and the pulsating like sub bassy sounds were just, I needed that to just keep driving the whole movie forward. From the beginning, I had a different choice in song at the beginning. The music was way more low key and like dreamy and like romantic almost, because I wanted to sell the romance. But the film is a fast movie, and I didn't want to like rip someone's neck off going 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. I was like, okay, we have to set the pace a little bit faster, and so we did. So it was about keeping that pace and making sure that from the minute you get into the movie that there's a breakneck speed, and that when it's not breakneck speed, you are either like horrified or it's an intense moment that you're meant to just sort of sit with. Yeah, so that was my both technical and philosophical approach to the sound.
Shooting 2 cameras like that, I applaud you. And also, I think you have to, as a director, really have trust in your actors to film it in the way that you did, particularly if you are letting them roam kind of the space, and you saying that they kind of, you didn't necessarily block everything. That's a testament, I think, to both to you and the actors.
There's definitely like an amount of trust that you have to have. I have experience doing like experimental work where it's an hour long, like, an improvised work where we are fire hosing, trying to find the next shot and just sort of like working through it. And I have so much experience in like event stuff and like corporate work, that when you apply those like weird rules to a narrative movie that's so genre specific, like it feels so alive and so like out of this world. Yeah, I feel that you have to have actors willing to go out of this world when you want to make something like that, because there's definitely a way to like slow it down and not and then try to like, I don't want to say nuance, but when you try to like take these types of movies slow, it doesn't really work. Like you have to be committing and full swinging to this idea that there is a sugar daddy uptown. Oh, what happened? Oh, I broke out. That there's a sugar daddy uptown and a drag queen who's here for revenge. Like when you have your cinematographer willing to go there and your gaffer willing to go there and your actors and the sound is like, when it's all willing to go there, it kind of gets there. And that was a huge trust exercise, I guess.
Awesome. And I guess the same question for you, Lucky. I know this was your thesis, so I'd love for you maybe to talk about, was it a smaller crew, kind of the overall timing of the production?
Yeah, so I had like a rotated, like I had a few different DPs, like, because kind of working in that school zone too, like everybody also has their film, and so you're kind of all supposed to collaborate, but yeah, it can be like really tough. I knew I had like one consistent DP who was always there with me. His name was Dan, and very like reliable and like fun to be around. And like I knew, and I had like a few other kind of people that like, well, it would just kind of depend on schedules and who was available. There were times where it was just me, like kind of running around like with the camera. And so like that was kind of like, there are various like kind of folks like in and out. Crew wise, I would say there were like only ever like a total of like me, a DP, a sound person, like just like boom, and then like what like usually my like production designer, Jazz, who like was also like just like also a lifesaver, like PA, like Jazz, can you please drive it, or Jazz, can you please like put this up, or just like I can't give enough credit to Jazz like for like feel like saving my life like multiple times like making this. Um, um, Not like saving my life like I'm on the brink of death, you know, but movies are insane and you just need someone to like just like, hey, you got this, you're good, like what do you need? You're like, oh great, here's what I need, like thank you. So very small crew, but also like for me like a really big crew. I've always just kind of made things by myself, I feel like, especially coming from a more experimental background. So this is like my first time, especially because during the pandemic, when we like the way my program is set up would have gotten into narrative like filmmaking and production. I didn't have that. It still was just kind of me. And that's like kind of difficult being interested in like large grand spectacle, you know, kind of things, and like being like a one person band. But it really getting to have other people really allowed me to like focus on directing and kind of like let go of some things, and that was like it's the ideal way to do it. It was really sick. And then yeah, sound design wise, I have a love-hate relationship with doing sound design, because like I think it's extremely important, and it's always the thing I'm like the most proud of. I feel like when I like finish a film, because it goes like hand in hand with like the editing process for me. But also I hate it because it's like I get really overstimulated, and like I'm very sensitive to like sound specifically, and then because of that, I also always want to make these films that are like loud and like noisy and like, you know, really just like you know, have a lot of sensory overload. So that can be like a lot for me. But I think it kind of fits with what I was like kind of going for. And what these kinds of spaces are like, and also like what kind of sounds like you can put in something to like further kind of build out the world, or kind of express something, or like you never know like what there's a sound for. And I really love manipulating like the sounds and the images to like really kind of get what you're going for. And I'm a tinkerer in Premiere. I just kind of will sit and I'll screw around in keyframes for like a long time, and that's like part of the play that you need to do to like find the thing. And sometimes you like throw a lot away just to have like a little smidgen of like a movement that's like really jarring or something like that. Or so yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
It totally does. It totally does. Sheen or Giuseppe, do you guys have any questions?
I would ask a question to both filmmakers actually. So I really enjoyed both movies, and I will start with a quote from Tristan's statement where they share the story of the path that brought them to cinematography. And there is one part that I really related to when they said movies were my guiding light along the way. And I mean, very different circumstances, but I think that, for example, for myself, queer movies were my first gay community. The first time I was surrounded by people that I could, you know, relate to and similar experiences. And so I like that idea a lot, that the movies can be a community, can be a way to show you how life can be. And I just wanted to ask, like, kind of an open question to both of you. Like, what is your personal emotional relationship to your movies? What was of you in these movies?
My emotional relationship with my movies it always changes. It's always in flux. There's always, you know, when you do it enough, there's always this level of work behind it where you know that nobody likes work, even though it needs to get done. But then there's also this level of, if you've ever trusted somebody with your entire life, that's how it feels. So there's a certain amount of work that blood, sweat, and tears that goes into that relationship that you know needs to happen, and that might be a hard time. But I trust everything that whatever it is going to be a more clearer version of myself than I could ever hope to try to put into other types of words. I have depended on making and developing movies as an outlet for my, you know, it's both been my way to move from my circumstances to better circumstances, as well as a way to mentally do the same thing, to sort of rebuild what was broken and see what was broken. And only after making the thing and when you see what you fixed do you realize, oh, that was a part of me and that was who I am. And it's really bittersweet and beautiful, and also incredibly infuriating because there's always the effort of, it takes a year essentially for the movie to get made, to come out, and then you talk about it. And sometimes it can take longer. And so when you are at that place at that time, you are rapidly growing and changing. It's like you are still that person, but you want more and you want to say more, and you need the other project. You need to both be in the place you were and remember where you came from, and also be so hungry to grow and to have more to say and reflect on that. So it's like, I don't know, it's a beautiful, vicious cycle is how it feels.
Thank you.
My yeah, I guess personal relationship to films, like in cinema, and to, like, to making work. I mean, it's a means of like really attempting to capture like what I see and how I'm like experiencing the world, and also how to capture and attempt to like share an experience of how other people like may see the world. And I feel like I make a lot of different kinds of movies that, like, this is film that we like was in this program is like, I think the most like me, and I feel like I'm always wrestling around with upstairs, or like I'm a night owl, like I like being out at night. I'm seeking things out like this, like it's a night odyssey. At the same time, like I have this documentary that I'm also really proud of, called These, can I swear on here? It's got a swear word in the title. It's called These Fucking Kids, and they're like, it's like a family I kind of connected with here in South Philly, but it's these two kids. They're like 6 and 5 years old, and they've got like mouths like sailors, like they curse a lot. But they're buddies, and they kind of like stick up for each other, and it's just kind of them riding around doing their thing. And there's like, I like follow them, and I'm like, when I filmed them, like I was very with them, like they were very in on the process as much as like a kid kind of can be, but I was like always on their like eye level and stuff like that. And like parents are always kind of like cut off or like things like that. And just kind of, I was able to kind of sink into like their world for a bit. And so I feel like there's just kind of these different ranges of like, perspectives you can kind of share. And I learn a lot about other people through film, and as much as I learn a lot about myself through what I make. And I love working on other people's stuff for that reason. And I'll never not make stuff like for that reason. Like I'm I feel like I'm always grappling with like kind of the darker parts of America, because I make movies, I guess, about what I'm like the most afraid of. But I'm also trying to make movies about like I also love what I see, or I'm interested in what I see, and I can't think of a better medium that or a more attractive medium to me than cinema, for like really kind of trying to like express that or show that. um yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for your
That's a good
answers.
question. I'll come up with an even better answer for it, like when I shower later. I'll be like, oh damn.
You can shoot.
Oh, that's it.
You can shoot me a line. I will appreciate the answer.
Right, so I had another question. I think this was a question that was also asked in the physical Q&A, but I was wondering, how you felt watching your films on the big screen and as part of an audience too. As Giuseppe mentioned, a very queer audience full of people in the queer community. So I was just wondering, how you felt seeing that, if there were any surprising reactions or anything you didn't expect from the audience.
I always I love watching movies with an audience full of people. Like it's really nice to have that reaction and to have that general. It creates an energy in the room that's just a whole like experience in and of itself. And I love watching my stuff on screen, all big and tall and huge. And it's cool. Like you see it in a way that you don't get to see it normally. The way that like I'm a pretty big believer in that our association with the means in which we watch stuff on screens, like our phones and like laptops and TVs, like it's kind of, we expect it more. And so to see it on something that you don't see as often, which is a big screen with an audience full of people, like you appreciate it more and it becomes cinematic and it becomes, I don't know, awesome. It's like the way it should be. And the way that feels just like good as a filmmaker. It's very fulfilling.
Yeah, it's always like a privilege to get to like watch like my film like in a theater like with other people. It's getting to like enjoy the fruits of your labor and getting to really see like your thing up there. And I felt really like good about it and really proud of it. I definitely have seen it in like a few different audiences now. So now if I go to watch it with people, I like am listening. Like I don't really look at the movie anymore. Like I know the movie at this point. Like I do. There's nowhere else to look. Um, but like I'm kind of more so listening to like as best as I can, like the reaction or like the energy in a room like during a part. And there are like a few instances where I can usually like I feel like I'm counting on like a specific reaction, and I'd say 9 times out of 10 I've like gotten it in these like very specific moments of like there's that shot with like where his hands are dry and they like squirt the lotion into his hands, and like I always count on like a laugh there. I usually get it. And I think that's like the part of the film for me where I'm not like afraid also anymore to be sharing this thing with people. Like I'm kind of feel like when that moment happens for some reason, I just kind of like there's something very like I don't know, just kind of silly, like it's okay to it's okay. Like I just get comfortable with the movie once that happens. I'm not sure why, but I think because laughter is usually the it's an easy way to like gauge like a audience approval in a way. I mean, if it's intentional, it sucks if somebody like laughs at something that's like isn't funny or wasn't intending to be funny. But for when you are going for it, it's an easy, you can actually gauge it that way. So like once that happens, I'm like, okay, we're good. I'm ready for the rest of the movie now. And yeah, I was happy with it. But
Awesome. Do do you guys want to maybe talk about what you have lined up in the future, as far as if you know if this is playing anywhere else or other projects that you have in the pipeline?
I can, yeah. I have, coming up this Monday, I have like a film I have to finish for this thing called Club Video, which is like a experimental comedy video festival coming to Philly. It's based out of Brooklyn, Tristan, but it's coming to Philly on April 23rd, and I just made something for that about a guy in the park who like uh, uh, everything smells bad to him and he can't handle it. And then I'm working on 2 other things. I mean, right, like I said, blurred my thing, but right behind me is like a huge wall of sticky notes for like a film I'm working on about a guy who looks like Albert Einstein, like for real. This guy really does, and believes he's being targeted. He believes he's being gang stalked as a result of like targeted advertisements. And then keep your eyes peeled for hopefully one day a Vince McMahon found footage documentary. So
Awesome.
Oh, love the Vince McMahon found footage documentary. Goodness gracious.
oh, well, okay, we'll talk then.
I am working on a handful of things. I feel like I always have to have something going on, or else I'll go a little crazy. Unless I need like a moment of downtime, but usually I'm just up and ready to get to the next one. I've got a feature that I'm raising money for. I am getting into deliberately autobiographical stuff. You know, it's always kind of, I've always heard like write what you know, and I've always kind of like formulated what that means in a way, and I've never formulated it to mean let's just try to write my life. Let's just do something exactly the way it happened and see if that we can find some kind of narrative flow to it and structure it to be, you know, sound and satisfying. But that's the big one right now. I'm working through that. I'm doing what we can to find more producers that are on the same page and, you know, have experienced this situation or similar situations to the character in the film and to me. Yeah, it's really, really cool to have somebody on your side of it, you know, meaning like the producing, the planning, the you know, the whole gamut of it, who is also like experiencing a similar journey. When you kind of have to do that on your own, it's tough. When you're making a movie about a journey that kind of comes from like your place that maybe your producers or executive producers like align with, but they're not like experiencing, like it's I can't wait to work on this film because it's going to be really the first time that I've worked with producers and people that are hungry, that are also going through, you know, a similar queer experience, a similar gender adventure, as I like to call it, whatever you got. Yeah, so that's going on. Oh, wait, I also have more tangible stuff. I'm sorry. I got,
Let's hear it.
I have another festival. I have another film I shot called Blunt Civility. That's screening in New York at it's called the Anti-Clout Film Festival, and I'm very, very excited and very happy to be showing. It's probably going to be in Brooklyn. I don't know where it's actually going to be, but that's the end of April on the 23rd. And then I have another film festival in Brooklyn, like early May, screening Canal Street as well. So hopefully the rest of the year, it's going to be more just touring shorts and meeting more people and being everywhere, being as many places as I can.
Awesome.
Cool.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Well, thank you both again for joining us. This will be on our YouTube page and again on the Eventive, and we can send that over to you when we're done. But again, check out the GTF program, which will be available starting this Monday through April 30th. And thank you guys so much for joining us in person and virtually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.